There's a great book called Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. In this video, we're going to look at the principles in that book and applying those to designing a retirement that's really fulfilling and enjoyable. So by retirement, I mean that you don't have a mortgage, you don't have excessive debts, and also you don't have any children under 18. And the combination of these two things means that you've got a lot more freedom in your life. You're maybe not 100% confident you have enough money to stop working forever, but you can do work that really fulfills you and aligns with your values. So the first principle from the book is that you can use your values to guide you in terms of what you want to do with your productive time. You no longer have to look for things like, well, where's this job located because I don't want a long commute, or things like, does this job pay enough money so I can afford to pay my bills? So now you can have a vocation instead of a job. You can have something that you feel really passionate about, something that, as the author George Kinder says, lights the torch inside you, something that really inspires you and motivates you. To discover your vocation, the authors recommend journaling. They also recommend noting times when you're in a flow state, when you're so engrossed and passionate about a task that time just seems to stand still. The task energizes you rather than depleting your energy. They also recommend creating mind maps, which is a brainstorming activity where you look at one particular vocation and then words that are linked to that, and then in turn words that are then linked to those words, and you find things that tie together as a cohesive whole, and you can then pick the parts of that mind map that interest you the most. The authors are keen to point out that we're all capable of living many lives and getting satisfaction from many different things. It's not just a case of sticking with what you studied at university and the professional qualification that you have. You can look more deeper into what makes you happy and then start to look at other things to do with your time. It's important to note that we're talking about designing rather than planning. Planning just involves taking the resources that you have, such as time and money, what age you are, what qualifications you are, and making the most of them within a given time frame. Designing focuses on creating something entirely new without constraints. It involves problem solving, creativity, generation of ideas. You've got flexibility and adaptability with design. There's experimentation, iteration and refinement based on the feedback that you get from the activities you undertake. In the book, the authors recommend taking 3 different lives and then constructing an Odyssey plan for each one, where an Odyssey plan involves looking at the journey your life will take in the next 5 years if you engage in each of the specific activities. For the Odyssey plans, the authors recommend that the first one is based on the current job that you do and just making that as good as it can be for you within the current constraints. The next one you do is, what if that job suddenly becomes unavailable and you do something similar to it, something related to it, something that's still using the same skills. So maybe like an accountant becomes a bookkeeper. And then the third Odyssey plan is what you do with no constraints around time or money, location, the training that would be needed. What would you do if you just truly followed your heart for the rest of your working life? So here's an example with the timelines at the top where the person's getting involved with yoga, doing their own practice, having yoga retreats, going to Nepal, writing a book, creating a community. The authors believe that action precedes passion. You need to actually take time to develop a passion. You actually need to do the activity before you know you'll be passionate about it. So there are some things that you've maybe not considered, but if you try them out in the correct way, you might go to really like them. And then there's other things where you think you're going to be passionate about them, and when you try it, you actually think it's a load of old rubbish. To decide which Odyssey will work best for you, the authors introduce the concept of prototyping, which involves designing mini experiments to explore different possibilities and gather data on what works and what doesn't. These prototypes could involve things like trying out a vocation as a hobby, volunteering, taking a class or studying something, and conducting informational interviews. An informational interview is a short interaction, maybe 15 minutes or less, with someone who's currently doing the sort of work or vocation that you'd like to do. It focuses on how they transitioned from their prior career into their new career. And you can find people to undertake informational interviews with from things like LinkedIn or maybe just searching the internet. And then at the end of the informational interview, you can ask them to recommend other people who've been on a similar journey, and that way you can build up a large bank of interviews to help influence your decision. So an example for me might be, I'm quite interested in potentially doing a guest lecture in economics at my local adult education college, and rather than looking on Indeed for some kind of job vacancy, I can just turn up to the college, find some people to talk to, and ask them how local people with a lot of work experience can get involved on a volunteer basis. During an informational interview, you don't ask for them to hire you, but ideally you express so much interest and passion that they're interested in keeping your details on file and contacting you if or when they have a job vacancy. The authors recommend building up strong resilience and accepting failure, and realizing that true innovators like Thomas Edison made hundreds of failures in terms of inventing the light bulb. When you're doing things that are truly new, different, and challenging, you're going to face a lot of tough decisions and challenges along the way, but with resilience, you can just power through them all. In designing your retirement, it's important to build a team around yourself, to have different people with different areas of expertise who can assist you with knowledge and whom you can assist with your knowledge and your experiences. Ideally, these people will give you superior coaching. They'll ask you challenging questions to make sure you're on the right track for what you want to achieve. If you run some numbers in a retirement calculator, that can give you the confidence that you have enough money behind you to design your ideal retirement. A well-designed retirement is value-driven, it allows you to thrive, and it involves experimentation and teamwork. If you want to join me, sign up to my newsletter and become part of the community.